Anna and I to talk to the board about any policies or trends you want us to follow or advise department heads to follow as they build their budgets in the next 2 months.
Can we?
It's not a complicated budget, but, excuse
Question
me?
about these reports.
Yes.
How hard are they to change?
To change? Like, are you on FY #21 or '22?
Are you talking about the layout, Brendan?
Yeah, I'm looking at FY21,
Okay.
the revenue.
FY '21, the revenue.
Like, I'm wondering if there's a way where we can make some of the revenue forecasts almost a little bit more closer to what we actually expect. I mean, we always budget the revenues
Oh,
extremely
so
conservative.
that's not changing this form. That's when we do budget and you go over the revenue budget, that's when you guys can actually have input and
Yeah, 'cause I was thinking about that lot.
we can change them.
Yeah, because the
Yeah.
lot's a 0.
Well, yeah,
Yes,
the
it
LOT is a 0.
It is.
So, like, you go to the expense report and you go to the last page, which is where a lot of people would go, like, where are you at? And you're at, 127, you're 27.5% over budget because you transferred almost $1.3 million on a 0 budgeted expense over to a revenue line that also had 0 budgeted. So on this side, we're almost 28% over budget on expenses, and then you go to total revenues and we're 33.57 over. So, like, let's make
if you look at that, on the revenue side for FY '21, I mean, mine's highlighted because it's my Bible,
Right.
so to speak. The state electronically gave us the salt shed grant for $331,973.20. And then the LOT revenue, the state puts into the general fund as well.
Right.
That has to be transferred out, and if you add those two together, you'll see where that's transferred out on page 7 of your end of the year expense reports.
Yeah, we had the transfer, like the LOT wasn't, the LOT and the grant were reported as a macro number instead of the two
But
separate
because it
ones.
flows into the general fund
Right.
for auditing purposes, I have to show that coming in.
So is there a way to have the same code but have a sub account to a certain code to be able to show this was grant income and this is LOT income? I'm just thinking we're having a baby in September, right? And my whole thought is, if I'm gone in a year and a half and there's somebody else here, what can we do to make this easier to understand? This takes a good solid year of sitting down and asking questions before you really understand the semantics of it all.
I think
That's
the
true,
best
but-
way we're gonna do that is change accounting software when we can in a few years, but that's gonna take its own.
Well, this got to get corrected before the next couple. We can't wait years to these.
I don't think you can simplify it nearly as much as you might like. It's not complicated, there's just a lot of lines in there.
Yeah, but
There
my
should be
question
more.
is, I mean, and it seems like the biggest, because I was mentioning the same thing. It seems like the biggest line item on there is just the lot. Seems like
Just
if
the
we,
what?
The local
lot.
option tax,
What's
as
it?
we
Oh, the
call
local
it.
its
option
budget
tax?
says
Yep.
0. Is it possible for us to
'Cause we-
average the last 2 or 3 years as a?
Well,
as
if
an
you
estimate?
budget that, that means you have to bring that in as revenue to
Mhm.
offset your expenses, and you cannot transfer it to the
To
LOT money.
You do
the
every
restricted account that's off.
You do. You can transfer that over. We're not accounting for it in our tax rate.
But yes, you are.
But that's how we
You're
create
budgeting,
it.
your revenues are if you look at your article,
Mhm.
if you look at,
The town
the
report.
the
Yep.
article that you voted on,
Yep.
we voted on $4,422,592. And if you look at the warning, you have that
Well, you
in your
subtract,
warning,
right.
but you have to subtract the revenue to arrive at that figure, that amount to be raised
So
by
these are
taxes.
NEMRIC generated reports. These come straight from NEMRIC, from the software. You create them through NEMRIC.
They create the software for all the
Yeah.
town clerks
Right.
across the
But
state.
these reports are printed through NEMRIC.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So this is all tied into. Okay. So that makes it a little more complicated. Is there not? I guess we should look into another. We need some other form of software, because if we can't accurately budget revenue, how it just makes it
You
harder.
shouldn't be budgeting LOT money.
Well, I would like to see a figure to compare it to. If we get if we show 3/4 in, we're at 600,000 when last year we were at six. Like I don't have last year's budget to compare it to.
The thing
That's
is,
my problem.
we're putting it in that account because the article dictated where we put those funds, and it's in
I don't have a
separate.
problem where the money goes.
No, I'm saying, I understand that, but we can't take something that's supposed to go into a savings account and putting it into a checking account, because the voters said it had to go into that savings account, and we're tied by state law with certain software. I mean, they just barely released us from that obligation.
Yeah.
So how do we
Going
get to
forward.
NEMRIC reports that are kind of confusing to having another report that maybe accompanies the NEMRIC reports? Maybe if it's just on revenues, like maybe if we updated revenues quarterly and did a quarterly revenue report that had like actual forecasts, or like last year compared to this year,
Mm-hmm.
just so we can, I mean, it gives us a better,
Is that what you're trying to fix, other than the understanding it, like a comparison?
yeah, I'd like to be able to
Budget
compare it to the
compare.
last 2 years.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
maybe
I mean, I guess-
and if it's a pain to put
Yeah.
together, quarterly's fine. You know,
Mm-hmm.
bi-weekly's great, but I mean, unless you sat here for a couple years and and have a good memory, it's hard to tell where we're at compared to previous years.
I guess for me, I just look at, again, like kind of like Brendan said, the last page looks like, wow, we're counting on 4.7 million roughly, and we got 6.2 million of revenue.
Right. That's LOT
And-
revenue,
yeah, and
salt
most
shed
of
money,
it's
and
that.
reappraisal money.
Yeah, I mean, is it a? I'm just trying to understand.
You have to
Is
subtract
it
those three figures off to
yeah,
get
is it
your.
a software issue though, or an accounting issue?
It's where the money flows. I mean, it's
So-
an accounting issue when it comes into the general
Mhm.
fund, because
So-
this is where we run our budget off
Yep.
of.
Right.
Okay.
So that money has to be
So-
transferred out, because the voted article that we voted on said all LOT money needs to go into the infrastructure account. So I have to have a paper trail, obviously, when it
Yep,
comes
okay.
in, and I have to have a paper trail when it goes out.
I mean, at its granular level at budget time, we don't even put in the tax amount, because we know what we hope it is, but we don't, all we do is everything else in between. We kind of just grossly estimate the rest of the revenues.
Yeah, Brian, you look at this, it's not. Yeah, you.
Yeah, and again, I was looking through the
Yeah.
big items, so it's
Yep.
just that lot.
Oh, those are big.
$1 million.
That's our
LOT
biggest.
revenue. You got LOT
Well,
revenue.
the $1 million
DPW, salt
is,
shed
you've
grant.
got, on the revenue side, if you add the salt shed grant, which needed to go back into the infrastructure
Mhm.
account, cause that's where we built the garage out of, and the LOT revenue, if you add those two together, that's where you're gonna get your exact dollar where I transfer to add the.
So if this is showing up here as a transfer, it hit the general fund first before we transferred it into the restricted funds.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's hitting the general fund, we can budget for that hit, right? It's being moved through.
Cause then then you're reducing your tax rate by that, and you're sweeping it out too.
That would
would be a double hit.
Right.
Well,
it
if
would
they equal, then it doesn't have a.
But if you put it in there, it would inadvertently,
So you're
tag
saying if we budget
as an
900
expense.
and we make $1 million, that 100 grand is gonna drop the tax rate? I guess.
If you budget that 900 and something thousand in revenue, and plus all the other revenue, you would subtract the revenue off the article that you wrote, to arrive at the amount to be raised by taxes, and then I could not sweep it over to the infrastructure account, cause I wouldn't have it.
you would use it,
I would
for the
not have
general
it.
fund instead of putting it in the savings account like you're required to do right now. It's just the way our accounting has to work. It's super
But it's what we vote
simple.
on too.
So in that
in a
sense,
way.
if we budget 900 and we only make 850, then the general fund loses 50,000 out of its fund
Well, I mean,
balance.
you can't even budget it for 900, because budgeting it for 900 would imply that it's an
It's
expense.
reducing the tax rate.
Well, we're seeing the expense show up here when we move it into the infrastructure.
No,
fund.
you just said it better, Brian. If we did it, anyway, it's
Could it
getting.
be separated out, like there's a checking page and a savings page, so it wasn't showing up? The
Just makes the
LOT was
reports-
like a whole separate category, so it wasn't throwing off the percentages.
I think that's, I wonder where having that revenue report where it takes, the kind of holistic view and like how we actually experience it might make sense, but, I don't think we wanna try to change the way that we manage the funds to make this look differently, because that from the little bit that I know about accounting and what I've learned is you gotta respect the accountant and the work that they do, for sure, because you know, it's not necessarily, yeah, I
It's
don't
not
think that
intuitive.
it's not, like, this isn't a tool that we can use to see exactly where we are, but I think that the report that Brendan's talking about, I think is gonna get at what we wanna see,
just
which is
have
have a sense of the historical context and,
I just have a hard time with D&H Housing having better accounting software than the town of St. Albans. Like, I can go in and pull any report I want at any moment from any point in time.
We can pull any report we want.
You can also write a business expense without going to a select board every 2 weeks.
Yeah, but I mean, this isn't.
I mean, but
that's
it's
not
just,
the same
all I'm saying
argument.
is it's
I mean,
harder.
I'm saying this software sucks compared
I know.
to.
I-
Like,
and-
QuickBooks would be immaculately better because you'd be able to have. I mean, these reports are okay, but it's like you're showing. I mean, it's showing up on the expense side because it puts us over expense. So if it's showing up on the expense and revenue, budget the expense and budget the revenue, and then they'll be closer to 100.
You can't, Brendan, you're not understanding the concept.
No, I
When
am
we-
understanding
when
the
we
concept.
figure-
You're not understanding the point I'm trying to make is if it's showing up in both reports, it is an expense and it is a revenue.
Right, revenue coming in and an expense going out
Right.
according to what the voters want.
Yeah, and they need to be zero at the end so that it doesn't really make these reports harder than they need to be to understand. I mean, it just arrives us to 127% on this and then 134% on,
but we're
it's.
still gonna have the grants that are gonna throw us off and
Yeah,
not get us
we
to
took
zero
it-
either
we took it
perhaps.
as-
Well, I mean, you're talking 20 and 30%. Like that's beyond like 5% in grant revenue. Like we're 5% over the revenue side because we had grant revenue.
So
Is
I
it
guess
for- Is it for us to understand it better or for the public? I'm just trying to think.
Right.
Well,
You
both.
know,
At
should
the
we
end of the
all-
day, these reports should all be posted on our website every
Yeah.
time we get one.
Right, but I think that, you know, beyond just having it, I don't know if having it equal zero at the end is really gonna help us tell, like, just to do things differently to make sure it always shows up as zero. That's not necessarily going to help us tell the story better in the way that this looks. I think trying to figure out if there's another way of reporting it that
Yeah,
also
I mean,
can
it's-
explain things a little bit more about, like, okay, here's why we don't budget it in, and here's why it's held,
Yeah.
you know.
There's double
pass-through.
entry accounting is required by law for municipalities, and it's not intuitive and it's not simple.
Right.
It does seem ridiculous, but maybe there's somebody who can better explain why we have to do it like this right now.
Well, like we have 27,
We can just add
854.50 going into the reappraisal fund.
Right, the state electronically, everything's done electronically
Right.
now. They electronically put it in our general fund.
Right.
And it's up to me to transfer that money out. I have to transfer it in and transfer it out.
But do like that 27, 854, is that relatively the same every year, and then we just get an extra few dollars when people subdivide?
Well, I don't know.
What
It's a
fee are you
dollar per-
talking about?
The reappraisal.
Just like all the
Oh.
transfers we make to our different segregated funds, where
Mhm.
there's a zero on the
Right.
budget line, but there's a, and then at the end it shows, like intergovernmental revenue. We
Mhm.
budget 315,000. We reported 1.8 million.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's like, is there a way to go through, like, some of these we know exactly what we're transferring, or pretty close to what we're transferring, not including grants, but like regular income. Is there a way that we can put in a placeholder in next year's budget to be able to, or is there a different report that we can create, like,
I think it would need to be a different one.
It's gotta be.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. And so I understand this a little better.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess I see the purpose of it. It's more
we
the
can't
accounting.
budget it, obviously, because
right? you
Yeah, I'm
budget
just-
it.
I guess
as a
for-
whole,
for
big time,
me-
we would be in a deficit.
Yeah, for me, and I know I've asked a little bit about it before, is as we've gone through the year, and again, I'm new, so I'm just trying to get my
Yeah.
head wrapped around the whole thing here. But I guess what I've looked at on every subcategory is the budgeted amount, the actual, and then the percent of the actual budget.
Right.
And it's just a way for me to kind of figure out where we're at. So for 6 months in, it would make sense that we're at around 50%.
Yeah.
For a higher than 50, then I wonder why that is.
That's
If
right.
it's less, then
That's right.
and yeah, so for me, like the lot money, I mean, I'm just looking at the trend. Seems reasonable to think it's going to be at $1 million this next
Every year, pretty much,
right?
yeah, bring
Should
in
go up a little bit.
Probably
So
900 to
yeah,
a
so
million.
that makes sense to me. That okay, we can't budget it in here because of the way it's accounted for. But I'm wondering if
No,
there's
because
maybe
of how we vote on it.
Yeah, I get you. I guess I'm wondering if there's a separate report that's not accounting, just, I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around kind of like where we're at.
Okay.
You know, because I'm at work all day, and then every couple
Yep.
of weeks I come and just trying to see where we're at, and I think that would be helpful. I don't know how to fix it.
No,
Well, like,
that's fine.
Looking
How
for
can-
smarter people to figure
We
that out.
budget money on licenses and permits though, and then we receive revenue, and that doesn't mess with the tax rate. So if we can budget revenue on one line, how come we can't do it on all lines? Like, when I do my budget for like my mini storage operation, I budget my revenues and my expenses. I budget what I actually think I'm gonna have. That way, on July 12th, I can pull fiscal year to date on revenue and expense and see where I'm tracking with my budget for the year. I mean, this year, it's hard. I mean, you've got to have like reports from last year to compare it to, because that's the only way you can. Like, you have no side by side.
I can
Comparison.
pull up a comparative budget report, I
And
think.
Anna, I'm not trying to beat you up over
Oh,
this.
no.
Like, I'm not trying to be
Completely.
difficult.
I'm just trying to
No.
understand.
Yeah.
myself,
It's hard.
Makes
I mean,
sense. A
you
little
get
more.
new select board members. It's hard to try to, understand this. It took me probably a solid year of just being quiet and paying
So,
attention and talking with Anna.
On your revenue side, if you wanted to make it a little simpler, on your revenue side, I have, I subtracted the $1,304,255.11 off the $6,000,000, and I came to $4,957,871.09, which is $269,613 more in revenue than we budgeted.
Right.
So I can do a report.
That gives me a good idea. So
Yeah.
then that's not just an accounting number, that's an actual number.
That's an
right?
actual number.
And then
So,
Maybe
on-
having like a profit and loss statement, or having
Yeah,
something.
like a P&L
Yeah.
and like a monthly. I'd love to see a P&L and a balance sheet. Like,
That's
we
fine.
receive so much regular income and so many different streams, like
And we
impact
do, and if
fees.
you look at your revenue report,
If you watch the revenue report, you'll see it. Like, if you're paying attention to these reports every week, you'll see what Anna's communicating. But if you don't know the report inside and out and don't have last week's information to compare it to, like, showing this to a member of the public, it'd be so hard to understand. It's almost not transparent, and that's not what anybody's trying to do. That's yeah, and I mean, maybe we can say in the development of the revenue budget, when we work our way into October,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we take 5 years actuals, and that's what we budget for, like, average of 5 years actuals, and like try to develop this is what we do for revenue forecasting. We take the last 5 years, we create an average or a 3-year average, because it's like some of these are right on. Liquor licenses, we budgeted $1,800, we made $1,850. Building permits, we budgeted $15,000, we made over $40,500. Recording fees, budgeted $60, made $123. But then there's marriage licenses, we budgeted $500, there was $440. We had COVID, we didn't issue as many marriage licenses. That's what that tells you. It's so close, you can see, okay, that's $500, we only made $440. Easy to understand why. COVID, people canceled their weddings.
Well, the office was closed.
Yeah,
for
and like
that.
the closer all these are, I think it's going to be easier for individuals to be able to understand what's going on and what out in the world is making it be the way that it is. But when it's you budget 15 and you make 41, it's like, okay, we must have just budgeted 15 because we budget 15 every year. I don't know.
Well, last
but
year
that was the
wasn't,
trend.
right,
I mean,
last year was a
people were
really
refinancing like
crazy.
crazy because the rates were so low.
Right.
I mean, it's a trend. It might not happen next year.
You're right. So if we had like a 3-year rolling average,
Sure.
and we can maybe the 15's 22, and maybe
Right.
we know that that's artificially high because this last fiscal year we took in way more money than we usually do. But
so
we'll know
what is
that.
it that you would like, 5-year, 3-year, because there are a lot of different numbers have
I
been
think we probably
tossed
keep
about?
talking about it and maybe revisit some of those points when we go through every account together.
Sure. Yeah.
And,
Okay.
and again,
Come up with
you're
a
doing a
plan.
fantastic job.
Thanks.
I mean, literally, we
Yes.
set the rate Thursday at 8:15. The bills were in the mail today.
Yes.
I mean, this is absolutely me bickering over this report is absolutely no. I mean, everything that comes out of the clerk's office has been fantastic all the way through COVID.
I was as excited as anyone to get my bill.
Me too, right?
I couldn't believe it. It was so fast.
Well, I haven't gotten many complaints, which is nice. The biggest thing is homesteads not filed. I don't know what's up with the state, if they're behind.
Maybe it's because
Because I get downloads every week, so I have to send out revised bills every single week.
the tax deadline was extended a month. Maybe people just keep taking extensions. I don't know.
They
what
weren't
the-
giving them anymore, but I think the tax department we were talking about is really delayed,
Yeah.
behind.
Does anybody else have any questions?
So when we come back, are we coming back Monday, or are we gonna do this in August?
I think
Yeah.
August, because give us
Okay.
till the end of July to get all those bills
Okay.
that need to be in fiscal year 21.
All right. Okay.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Okay. That was long enough to make my computer screen turn off, so let me get this pulled back up. We're on to town manager report, right?
Are we?
On the agenda?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have my agenda in front of us. I'm trying to sign in here.
You're right.
Okay, agenda item 7. We requested our ARPA money from President Biden.
Yes.
Awesome.
It wasn't immediately obvious with everything that went on. There was a lot of push beforehand, but we did do it in a timely manner. So you see, just in case people start asking about it, we've had only one person so far ask about what we're using it on. But I bring it up for 2 reasons. One, to let you know we did it, but 2, to let the public know we, of course, haven't decided what we're going to spend this money on. We haven't received it yet and gotten no actual, other than the paper you have, that which feels
No.
kind of informal for that amount of money. We haven't gotten any confirmation that we're getting that amount or when it's gonna happen. I expect soon.
Is it working its way through the county, or how does it?
That's a separate, I
Separate
heard that
pot
it
of money?
was, there's a separate pot of money working its way through the county and going through the county judges. That
Okay.
kind of mechanism, I think. But, so this was the separate one. This was the direct to the municipalities pot of money.
Okay.
We probably should start actively thinking about how we're gonna spend that money, because it has an expiration date, you know, it's not unended, it's not open-ended, we do have to spend it, I think,
Do we want to
fairly
develop
quickly.
like a decision points memo with some
Mhm.
guidance from the feds as it becomes available?
Yeah, absolutely, we just don't have that yet. We might
Yeah,
have,
when we get to the point, yeah.
we might have to, well, I just kinda did it to, when you're driving around your car and thinking of other fun things. We're gonna have to think about this.
How much are we asking for?
It was about 600, I think it's in there, but 638, I wanted to say.
Okay,
680, sorry, that's a big
Nice.
difference. 680.
good.
So we can.
$575.08. It's just the formula they use.
It's,
Okay.
And again,
108 cents.
and it's to the, it's gotta be kept to the points that are in here, I'm assuming.
Correct. Yep. The uses are very specific, and they did issue us some guidance on that. But and for the federal
they-
government, it was fairly short. It's only
Do
6
they give you
pages.
any kind of a heads up, like when you submit, expect to receive within so many days?
They didn't. I mean, literally, the only thing we got after Jen applied, it takes a lot longer to get FEMA money, I'll just say, was that email that you see from July 6th.
So Anna, you think the best practice when we do receive this 680,000 would be to leave it in the general fund and segregate it, or do you think we should create a new checking account and put it in there?
I think we should create another new account.
I think it's gonna be required, actually, sadly.
So anytime you want to open it,
That's great.
but, okay.
Yeah,
We
I
can-
think it does have, all
We
state
close
and
one,
federal
we get
grants
3 more new
require it,
ones.
Yeah.
segregation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, different silo for sure. Anyway, so I wanted to get that out there. Item number 2, KAS is the company we use to analyze the old DPW. People still ask about that. We haven't forgotten about it. We did submit the report as needed to the state. And we're waiting for the results of that final thing, but no, we haven't done anything with it. We don't plan to do anything right away. But we are following the guidance.
680,000. It's a
You
nice
still-
windfall.
Yes, it is.
Only took a pandemic and hundreds of thousands of people, which is the scary
Correct.
part.
Do we have any future costs that we know about right now for the old DPW site?
Other than what I indicated here, I mean,
The
that report
9,000.
costs, I mean, we're gonna have ongoing well monitoring costs
Okay.
for a while, I think. It's, it's a few thousand, it's not tens of
Crazy,
thousands,
yeah.
but it's
Okay.
not zero either.
Mhm.
Okay.
Carrie, you mentioned waiting for the feedback to come back from what we submitted. Do you have any anticipated, not like what the results would be of that, but kind of what the range of things the state may come back and say about it? Or is it just like duly noted, thank you for sending it in, or is there
No,
expectations?
It actually did have a purpose, which I find refreshing with some of these things, that we found some contamination in the first few wells. They're trying to figure out how far it went,
Mhm.
to grossly oversimplify it. So that's why they picked those other spots on the map.
Okay.
So that's what I'm hoping to find out from that.
Okay.
Did it stop there? Is it significantly, what's the number and percentage from this spot to this spot we're trying now?
Mhm.
It seems amazing that, I was reading it, I didn't realize, so it started in the 20s till like 1960, it was a Standard Oil /
Mobile oil?
mobile oil
Mhm.
facility for
Yes.
that many years, and it's not that bad.
Correct. Yeah.
It's amazing.
That's what, I remember talking to Stan Dukas about that. We were actually relieved at those reports, because I think we all thought,
Effect on Lake Champlain, I think I saw.
Right.
So it's big.
I know, it's huge. So that's why I think we're kind of excited to look forward to
Better
maybe.
than expected.
Yeah, and-
Is this the last one?
Is this the last what?
The last time we'll have to approve like
I
$9
think so.
grand to-
I hope so, but I don't know. I don't really want to
Because we were thinking that
on the
like
record and say that.
we were thinking we were done like 12 grand ago.
I know.
Like when we opened that can of worms, the whole goal was to not
The-
get to this point.
But the good news is, if there is good news, that we're very close to the deductible, basically. That's the
Okay.
way I think about this with brownfields. Like, they ask towns and individual places to be on the line for a certain amount, and we're there. So if we get other expenses, yes, I'll have to manage it, but it's not necessarily gonna be on our
And this would all
dime.
be required to turn it into a bulk
Correct.
launch, and it's
So
an
that's the
investment in opening the
goodness of
property
that.
back up, so we can.
Right.
So where did you want to pull that from the budget? That 9,000.
I have consultant and engineering lines in the manager's thing. Sometimes if I run out of that, I get it out of miscellaneous expenses under town manager. Last year I used every penny of it plus some, but
That's just, well, those are the two lines that we usually try to.
this is old DPW. I think we should tag Alan's lines.
Alan, find me $9,130.66. Yeah, till tomorrow at 9. We'll talk about it. You can roll over your year to year.
That's true.
This guy's good. I gotta tell you. So it's just
It's good.
we've got so many things that we want to do, and I think we're gonna have an update in a couple weeks on like we want to do sidewalks in the bay, and that's gonna cost money to scope, and like where's that money gonna come from that we need to scope it, and how are we gonna, and that when I saw 9,000, it felt like we only had 25 budgeted, and we need like 100 to accomplish what we want to as fast as we want to, and like now we're losing almost half of the 25 that we did have. So if there's another way that we can pull that without having to hit the town manager side of the budget, that would be awesome. It's always fun 2 weeks into a fiscal year, you have like 30% of one of your line items.
Well, yeah, I
accounted for.
prefer not to do that as well. So, the next item on the agenda was a number of petitions and notices sent to the select board. It's good news, we have a lot of our industrial park, not just doing maintenance, but expanding in a way. So there's a number of those. I don't think any of them require, you have any kind of feedback
Do you
specific?
think that solar array is going to come for a preferred site designation? Or probably not. We'll deal
I don't know,
deal with them when they come.
yeah, which one was that? Actually, that's what I was.
SMS.
The one that came to us a few months ago is in front of regional planning.
Local,
Okay.
is that the same?
It
Yeah,
was
this
one on
is-
South
Oh, I
Main
think
Street.
you're right, Jen, yes. And so
Yeah.
the procedure we set in place, that's why I paused, was that planning commission, regional planning, and then they're gonna come to the
They
select
come
board.
to us last with both letters.
If,
That
right.
way, if we say yes, and it turns out to be not a good thing, I can point fingers at 2 other boards.
I think there was another reason given at the time, but sure.
Yeah, that was, well, transparency's king, right?
Well, it is a good, it's good all around for all of
That's
us
the
to be.
decision-making
Yep,
process.
exactly.
That's how we get away with having to pay some kind of an engineer to review these projects for us in-house.
It's true. The next item is a town hall update. So I'm gonna, you go for it?
You worked really hard a lot longer than I have. You
I
should
don't know,
get to
this is
say
a
it.
group thing. I think we had a great group of people, Alan and Anna and I. So this phase of the project involved, we had hired a construction manager, DEW. We have a project manager, Hunter Gomez from Peterson Consulting. And we recently went out to bid. What was scary for us initially was that the bids started coming in high a couple weeks ago. And the results, I'll oversimplify that hour-long, rather hand-wringing meeting we just had. The result of that meeting was that DEW worked with us and a local taxpayer and DEW employer, Rachel Lombard, helped us find some savings and changing small things with our programmatic, not any programs actually, just small things with our town hall. We're able to proceed and move forward with building town hall. We're really excited about it. The biggest change was removing some of the sprinkler system in place of a road that 3/4 covers the outside of the building, so our fire chief is comfortable with that. So we're pretty excited that we should be breaking ground in 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4. So we're gonna have a town hall, and it takes about 8 to 10 months to build those, so please be patient. I know a lot of people have asked me why we haven't broken ground yet, and it was because we very methodically and carefully studied the soil and took our time to make sure that once we started, we could continue and complete it. I think that's kind of a good summary of it. And the select board was involved in that, the building committee that consists of Alan and Anna, myself, Stan Dukas, and all those aforementioned consultants. So they worked really hard, and Jesse from FFF worked really hard on this project to make sure that we got the best value we could at this time.
Yeah.
So we will begin putting up updates on the project once it starts to actually move forward. Last time we put pictures on our website, which was fun for people. Everyone loves a good building project, so
Absolutely.
that's where we're at. It's kind of exciting. Town hall updates usually meant whether or not we were closed for COVID over the last 15 months, and it's kind of a pleasant change that we no longer have to do that. I think that's worth noting as well. And the public has been remarkable in their flexibility in working with us, so I thank them for that. The second to last thing on here, for me, I added something at the end, but was fiscal year 23 budget. I kind of covered this. I don't need to really expand on it a lot more, but as I stated in my notes, we usually start budget meetings in October. We usually try to go have every department head present their budget to the select board. We go through every line in the budget with them, ask questions about the capital budget towards the end, but we try to get through every single person's budget in October. There's always questions, so that's when we use November for maybe follow-up meetings, so that we can meet again with those department heads, and then the board has a chance to kind of look at what the macro number is and figure out how hard we have to sharpen our pencils and go back and do it again and again until we are comfortable with it. It's a pretty, I like it. I love doing budgeting, but because it's fairly straightforward, and we start in October so that we don't have to meet throughout December, and we get back together in January, roll up our sleeves and get it done, usually by the middle of the month. So that being said, this is the time when our department heads are planning things.
And we're looking at, so we meet the first and third Monday for select board, and this would be the second and fourth Monday that we would be doing budget in
Correct.
October? Okay, so
Yep.
we're just like lining up the Mondays.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
my hope. It should be the only time we have to do that. Going forward after that, we can sometimes meet an hour before the regular meeting and answer questions. But we usually try to do that. And in non-COVID times, offer some food to bribe you to come in at 5:30 and miss dinner at home. But yeah, that's exactly what I was hoping.
This year's budget cycle with this board, I think, is going to be a little more strenuous than most years in the sense of how can we. Anyway, we beat that horse enough tonight.
Yep. So the last thing I have on here is we're going to have a meeting first, I think it's the second Monday in September, of the Honor Wall Committee. So we have confirmed that we have a member from the DRB. Brendan offered to do it for the select board.
Can we move that date like 2 weeks into the future?
Yeah?
I got a baby due
You
the
might be
next day.
busy. Oh, you think that's gonna happen on time?
Good luck scheduling
That's
everything
okay.
else, Brendan.
No,
No,
the rest
but
of
you know
us-
what I mean. Like
I do.
2
Yeah,
weeks
sure
ahead.
do.
I just had Dr. Trombley explain. I said I'm a graph person, so he goes, "Oh, I like you." He gets
It
up,
wants
he,
the bell
he
curve?
grabs a dry erase marker, and he writes weeks down, and he creates his axis, and he starts drawing line, and he makes me this graph, and he says 88% of babies are born between 37 and 41 weeks. So if we go 2 weeks beyond that, that puts my wife at like 42 or 43.
Oh, so that's unlikely statistically. I get you.
Statistically,
Okay,
it's safer.
I hear you.
Where we have it scheduled now, we're
You
in-
won't be busy
They
then.
won't let her
Yeah.
leave.
I know. I'm like, oh dear. Well, if you would like me to schedule it 2 weeks later and postpone this, that's great. Just
Hey,
don't
I'll bring
wanna
the
be
baby. You can
flogged
teach me
for
some
it.
The birth is a start of
It
something.
should be
It's
2
not
weeks
just a
earlier.
date.
Could be.
Well, you still have a life.
Well,
All right.
He might come then.
I want to push the meeting up. if
Come the
you're-
date of
Yeah.
the. He'd probably come on the day of the committee meeting saying he wanted to be on the wall. But,
That's not how you get on the wall, Brendan.
yeah, I don't know. Tell him that.
So we can schedule it towards the end of the month if that's
That'd be better.
statistically what you think is going to be better.
Statistically
You
better.
consult
Okay.
with a consult with a
Okay.
doctor.
That-
Yeah, I will. I'll have him draw me a graph. I'll
He's
call
like,
him right
"Oh."
now at home. Dr. Trombley, the date of this committee meeting was not on the graph. I need counsel.
I need another graph.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. Then that's where we're at. I have, and so I would informally also request you start pondering who you might want to nominate, or who somebody in the member of the public would like to nominate.
Put some feelers out there on social
Yep.
media. Guy in the green shirt not paying attention. Social media,
Yep,
honor
yep.
wall. Thank you.
Before I forget, schedule-wise, September, Labor Day. I know it sounds awful. I don't want to talk about it really, but I'm going to. Obviously, we don't have a meeting on Labor Day. We had tentatively said we'd meet on September 8th. Do you want to meet on the 8th, or do you want to meet on the 13th, which is the Monday after that, just to stick to Mondays?
Okay, my baby's due that day. Like on the 13th. I don't know.
So you might not be here, but we have a vice chair.
What's that?
Charlie Group.
Oh,
Either's
nice.
fine.
I hope my kid is lucky enough to share his
His
birthday
dog.
with your dog. I really hope.
When was it supposed to be? Carrie said it would be the 8th or the 6th,
The
right?
6th is Labor Day, so then we had tentatively said the 8th, which is Wednesday. I actually am not going to be in town, but not that that's the end of the world. Corey can be here too and has been. So it's just your preference, 8th or the 13th.
Good either one.
Either fine.
For me.
Statistically, Dr. Trombley says it's the same, so I can go with either.
See how high he has become in your life. It doesn't matter.
Maybe I'll get him down here to help me work.
I don't think so. He's really, he is going to be busy.
Tell him to bring Dr. Disney loves at it.
I guess for billing, then I guess we could just leave it on the 8th, and
Be cool.
Corey should be here too, hopefully.
So we've got any questions for the town manager before we move on to schedule? Covered a lot. I'm getting $680,000 from the federal government. We're building a new town hall. We've got 5 Act 250 applications we were copied on, and we're cleaning up what we thought was a brownfield. That's really not as bad as we thought.
Yep, that's exactly it.
That's a pretty good update.
Mhm.
So, and we're already talking about next year's budget as we just passed the first warrant out of this year's.
Yep.
So that's very good. So schedule, we'll be back here next Monday. Hope you guys don't miss me. And we'll be back Monday, August 2nd, both at 6:30 unless something changes. Anybody have anything to add to schedule?
No.
Chairs report. Alan, I'm glad you're here. Bay Day. Great race. Amazing work. Very awesome work. You should have seen this guy. Julie and I both got there at 7 o'clock to volunteer. The whole thing was set up. I mean, Alan was...
I didn't do it all. I had a great team of volunteers and hard stuff.
Well, Alan and
Had a
John
hand-
Montague was a
whole
busy
night.
guy all day, and the vendors, it rained a little bit, but the vendors were so happy. I made it a point that day. When Alan was doing the real work, I acted like a politician. I walked around to every vendor and bought at least one thing and asked, will you come back next year, and what's something we can improve on? And the only person that actually gave me something to improve on was requesting potable water in the stone house. And when I said, we're drilling a well and it'll be here next year, the guy said, okay, pretty good. And I begged them all. I said, I know you're going to a lot more events this summer and you're going to be right tight next to other vendors that weren't here today. Beg them to come next year. The bigger this gets, the better it'll be for all of us. So,
Would you, just gonna ask you, Alan, or anybody, would you have an estimate of how many total people you think were there?
For the race or Bay Day itself?
The whole thing. I'm just wondering how many people were down at the bay on that day.
For the
That's
race,
really hard, but.
For the race, we had 191 participants. So on top of that,
They all bring 2 people or something.
yeah, I'd say there was at least 200 to 300 people, probably spectators. And then things died off a little bit when the rain picked up, but in the evening before the fireworks, there had to be
hundreds, maybe
there's
1,000.
probably thousands. The park fills right in for the
Yep.
fireworks and everything.
And like Julie and I were leaning against the great changes this year. The 2 biggest ones that I heard from most race participants were the race organizers, which are you and John this year, because remember, this is the town's first year running the great race without the Chamber of Commerce. They were so grateful that their great race packet included vouchers to the Mill River tent for a beer if they were of age, and they had another voucher for a hot dog or a cheeseburger at the Firefighter Association tent, which has their grill. They do the full concession stand, and the Fire Department Association actually sold their last cheeseburger about 10 minutes before the fireworks were scheduled. And Chief Cross said there was no way that if the weather was good, he said they would have been making a grocery run around like 4 o'clock. Alan had told me at the beginning of the day they were working to get 150 participants. We got 191. And the way that the infrastructure was built this year with the fencing and the electronic timing system, that 191 could get turned to 400 and it would still be very manageable. That's one thing that a lot of participants and family members that were watching on said was, it feels like it could be a lot bigger actually. Like we're having fun, but it feels like there could be more people. There will be, because everybody had positive things to say. And I mean, Alan, when I say good work, it's not just about the great race. Alan took it upon himself to go get free bowling pins last year from the Dairy Center in Enosburg. And he researched a game to play online called Foaling, which in itself is a combination of
Football, bowling.
It's football, bowling, meets beer pong, meets cornhole. And nobody played it at the beginning, and then Mrs. Mashchair and I remember 5th grade long-term sub, Kathy and I go back a long ways now. We went and got Mason, who also works for the town, Alan's son, and asked him to start playing the game with friends. They played 1 round, and there was people just waiting to try it, because they'd never seen it before. We could have foaling tournaments down at the bay, and Alan just decided,
We are having a full tournament. It's the morning of the Brew Fest.
yeah. And they made beautiful boards with a logo on them for the town, and it was all fenced in, and people were eating their cheeseburger and drinking their beer after the race, watching their kids throw footballs. It was awesome. One thing I've been debating on whether or not to bring up, and I am going to bring it up even though it makes me uncomfortable, is the fact that in the morning, the average participant made or had an income a lot higher than an average fireworks attendee at the end of the day. And I've been thinking about that a lot since the day. And the reasons are simple. To participate in a great race, either as an individual, as an Ironman or woman, or on a team, you need a canoe and a bicycle. And an ability to transport that down to the bay. And at the end of the day, you just need a way to get to the bay and watch the fireworks. So I don't know if there's a barrier that exists that we could tear down, allowing anybody from any socioeconomic status to participate in a great race. If there's a Rise Vermont grant out there that could pay for like two canoes, 2 kayaks, and a couple sets of bicycles.
Past years we did sponsor like maybe 10 people to do it for free, but I noticed, because I did it this year, like Joe and I have a big metal Grumman canoe, and we were like the only metal canoe. Everybody had such nice
They
canoes
were.
this year. I feel like there was less of like the scrappy, here's my mountain bike, here's my metal canoe.
And it was,
But it was cheaper than ever. It was the cheapest I've ever had to pay
it was
to
the
do
best
that race.
value. It was
Yeah.
great value.
Was
You-
it cheaper? Because I never, so
Yeah.
how much?
That's what everybody
Quite a
kept
bit.
saying.
Nice.
We try to bring it down just to get people started. This was the 41st year. I've done it well over 30 years myself as a participant. When that race first started, it was all about family.
Right.
And that's the way we're going to try getting it back there.
Yes.
The metal canoes, believe it or not, you would stand a better chance on a wavy day versus those
Yes,
lighter canoes.
yes.
I have a racing canoe and I've got a wreck canoe. And I would come to the race with both and it depended on the waves that day.
Yeah.
But my hope and goal is through the years, is getting it back to family oriented. We did a family team. My mom would make a big picnic. You spend the day in the park. You had your picnic. You bought fried dough. You bought French fries. You hung out. You watched the fireworks.
Yeah.
And that's my goal.
Oh,
pushing
you're
this
getting it
event.
there. You're getting it there.
And quite honestly, a lot of people, we had a group of people that came, that used to race, that haven't in the last 3-4 years. And they came up and said, we just came to check it out because the town took it over. They said next year they'll be racing.
There's so many
I think
people.
it's like the farmer's market. I got it started. John is taking it to the next level. Park booked every Thursday for the farmer's market. He took it to that next level. We took the race. We've started it. We're just going to take it to the next level.
Yeah, and it's just remembering that everybody deserves access, even if they don't have the ability to have the equipment. And you know that. I know you know that.
Well, we could brainstorm around that, like Local Motion has a trailer
Mhm.
bikes that
Yeah.
we might be able to use, and I think MVU has like a whole, BFA might too, like a trailer
MVU
of canoes. that
MVU has a
maybe
10
we
by
could borrow.
You
M-
just got to be
yeah.
careful.
You've got a 10 by 30 storage
I
unit
say this
full of
with all due
canoes at my
respect.
place.
You can't just. I remember when the chamber had it. It was like 3-4 years ago. There was a participant. This individual kind of got lost out on the running portion of it. They didn't even know she was participating. The bikers were all gone. Transition spots were getting changed. They were picking up the barricades by the time she was coming in on the bike. She hadn't even, she did some, but anyways, this individual wanted to try an iron person, and she didn't have the capabilities to do it. So you really, we got to be careful. I think it's family friendly. We have young participants. That's great, but you have to have a little bit of athletic ability. We had the roads shut down at 8:45 by 10:35. We had the road open because we do have to get a state permit.
Right.
So
I'm more worried about income. Like
I'm-
if there's a barrier there, and I'm not saying there may not be. I may be totally overblowing it, but we say we want to increase access and be a more accessible, inclusive community, and it's you notice things like that, and it's do you want to just say it was a great Bay Day, nothing went wrong, or do you want to say, hey, I noticed that in the morning, everybody that participated had a pretty good socioeconomic status and came from a,
And there might be an opportunity too. I know Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Vermont had a program where they worked with Cherry Bicycles to do a multi-week get into biking program for women to join. So it was geared at getting more women riding bikes, and so, you know, whether they had a bike, it was encouraged that you had a bike, but if you didn't, there was opportunities too, if I'm remembering correctly. But you know, there could be other sponsors out there that might want to sponsor a group of people to, you know, do kind of a couch to 5K sort of like thing to get them, you know, if they want to participate in that but don't have the equipment and don't have the experience of what that's like, maybe there's some way that we could, you know, partner with someone to do a coaching program for, and especially if it was geared towards young folks, I think that'd be great.
I mean, I'd love to be able to have this conversation right now with Mike King. Thinking about that.
He did put in for, we gave him money to buy canoes.
Yeah.
I think MVU has them now. But yeah, I mean, it'll be nice, like, if we could store a few at the park, right? And then people they can come and practice
Right.
without having to worry about the gear.
Mm-hmm.
There's just to get the brain turning. It's
Yeah.
just one of those things, you know, and it's not a hard thing to really figure out. It's just we've got really qualified people.
Well,
in the
maybe
field
that's
of-
something actually the Parks Committee should do, not the
Yeah, I feel that
select board.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, we can
Own a
delegate
few
it down too.
canoes
That'd
to
be great.
rent or something.
Yeah, however
So I
you-
think getting in shape it's not something you just decide that day to do, right? Or you
Especially if the
shouldn't,
water's rough.
shouldn't decide that day to do.
Yeah.
Won't be fun.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
We had so that's my synopsis on the Great Race. It was awesome. There's a structural thing we might be able to tweak to make it even better, but Alan, you've put the infrastructure in to be able to blow this thing up. Like you said, you can take it to that next level without really changing what went into this last Great Race. It was awesome.
We've already, John and I had a Zoom call with the timers. We've already booked them for next year. It will be July 2nd.
On the
Awesome.
calendar.
Great.
And then
Mark your calendars,
Yep.
July 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
And just a report on how fast government actually works at the local level. Maybe a week ago, been 9 days ago, Corey and I are both authorized on our Facebook page, and someone sent a note in on a Sunday, the Sunday after Bay Day. It was July 4th. Sent a note that there was a little sinkhole forming on Maquam Shore. And of course, Corey and I were both in the area and were terrified after what happened on Route 78. So, of course, within 10 minutes of both seeing that notification, reading it, we were both kind of down there, like, oh, it's about the size of a softball. And Alan changed the culvert today. There was an old metal culvert that was all rotted out in the bottom.
Yep, did in fact have to be changed.
And it's citizens just giving us, and there was no vitriol in there at all. It was, there's a little sinkhole, just want to make sure you're aware of it. We went and looked at it, Alan went and looked at it, ordered the material, dig saved it, did it today. Done. And shoulder work in the bay coming out really well. I don't have any complaints at this point. Do you have any updates on Cohen Park when we're going to see some paint and fences? Or
Send an email to Tom Ferrick, the fence guy. He hasn't responded. Corey actually told me that he'd seen him the other day. He thought the material should be coming soon. The pallet of coatings just came last week. But with the temperatures and stuff right now, we don't have the proper weather to put it down.
got it?
Between the moisture and the rain and the humidity, so.
So the fencing isn't up because the fencing was on order.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been taking this long to get.
I just, I.
We were
didn't
told
answer.
August, I think, is what she had given us a heads
Yeah.
up. So we're on track.
Mhm.
Well, and my thing
Hopefully
is now that the coating's here, that's why I sent the email, because if he's gonna come and start drilling and putting in the fence,
By doing
I'll
it.
just wait, do the coating after.
Yeah.
If it's gonna still be another 4 or 5 weeks, I wanna get the coating done, and then I can put the backboards up, and people can use at least the basketball side, tennis. I'm sure they don't want it, because they'll be chasing tennis balls all the time without the fence.
So the court's not the court's settling all the same. Nothing scary so far.
No,
Good.
solid, yeah.
Good. Okay. Anybody else have any other questions for Alan since I kind of opened up a DPW director report? No? Okay. Anybody have any other business? Okay, we've got.
I just got one. I just want to say kind of a, well, I guess, public service thing, and thank you too back on June 30th, my daughter came and picked up my son from my house and was bringing him to golf. And we're just pulling down the road onto 105. And the grass was too long on the side of the roads. And my daughter is very short, at 5'1". Couldn't see over the grass and pulled out and got hit by another car going about 50 miles an hour. And thank God, no serious injuries. My daughter had a broken wrist, but that was the extent of it. My son was fine. The other driver, a mother with a young child, again, thank God everyone's okay. And the biggest, trouble's been just, getting insurance company to work a little faster. I let Carrie and Corey know. They reached out. It was a V-Trans road. It was their responsibility to take care of that. But we're at that time of year, late June, early July, where the grass is starting to get tall and it needed to be trimmed. And they reached out to the necessary people, and it got taken care of, and it's way safer. We can see both directions. So obviously, if you're in, you see a spot like that, let Carrie know, and she'll if it's either Alan needs to take care of it or V-Trans or whomever. That's good. Obviously, now I've been driving around looking everywhere, and it's pretty safe. It seems.
They did that whole corridor too.
Yeah, the whole thing was done very quickly. And when it's a tough situation, 105, it backed up traffic all the way. St. Albans City Police were still on the schedule. It was June 30th. They came up. Were very professional, very quick. We had our fire guys showed up and took care of everything like they'd done it before. It was clockwork. But again, everything went very smoothly, as quick as it could. It turned out better than it could have. You want to think about if she was half a second earlier, car would have hit her somewhere else. So mostly a thank you, but also if you see it, let Carrie know, and she'll let the right people know and get it taken care of. Could have been scary. That's it. Thank you.
I've been telling a lot of residents, because a lot of people don't know V-Trans only budgets for one cut a year. So obviously that section is going to be bad before the end of the year. So as a resident, you best to call V-Trans District 8, because as soon as you complain about it, they got 72 hours to get it fixed. They have to. That's the state rules. We try to get out at least 3 times a year to do our town roads. We've been one section, one time's been done. In the next week or two, we're going to start hitting it again. But if it is a state highway, even though it's in the town and it is an issue, you really should call V-Trans.
Yeah.
Harborview on the south end of town has the same issue between Crossroad Street.
Yeah. And again, if you're not sure, then let Carrie know.
You're not sure.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I sent an email and
Perfect.
I sent the email on purpose,
Yeah.
to time and date stamp it.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was taken care of very quickly. I mean, it was less than 24 hours, and both sides were cut. So.
I think that might have been in part coincidence, the other part of the road, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone have anything else? I'm glad to hear everybody's okay, Brian.
Oh, I don't know. I got down that road very quickly, given the fact that I followed the speed limit the whole way down. So 8 seconds or so, felt like so.
You must dye your hair. I don't see any gray.
Well, especially when I asked her, is Oliver okay? I think so.
I think so.
We get down there pretty quick. Yeah. So everyone was all right.
I don't have anything else.
Okay. So we have a personnel matter to discuss in executive session. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we enter executive session to talk about personnel contract or the other thing and invite the town manager. Did I get
Per
close?
the correct Vermont statute.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Paragraph 3, section A, C.
There you go.
Okay.
All right, Jen, I'm
Second.
gonna stop recording now.
Yep.
Jessica, second. Jessica,
Jessica,
Thank you.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
all in favor?
Sweet. Thank you.
7:55.